All right, well, thanks, Tiffany. Welcome, everybody, to the continuation of the 2022 rules training. Today, we're going to be doing first aid, team tech, and bench. First of all, it's going to be first aid at 10 o'clock to about 11 or so. Team tech's 11:30, and bench is going to be 2 p.m. this afternoon. As you see on here, Stephanie Mead's going to be collecting your rosters. It's important to get your rosters in if you want to get credit for today. Sometime in the future, if you're a judge, somebody might want to know if you're trained, and this will be the way you can show that you've got proof that you were trained. As I did yesterday, I wanted to thank several people for contributing to today's training. First of all the team members, the committee members that are assigned to the various committees for different venues. They've worked very hard for probably about 2 years now, and really thank them for all their hard work. I want to thank the advisory committee and their co-chairs, Kenny Murray and Sammy Linville, for all their hard work also. Stephanie's been very helpful, extremely helpful in getting these rules together and keeping track of everything and helping out, putting things up on the website here. Tiffany has sent out all the invitations, and she's our webmaster. So she's been really helpful in doing all these things that need to be done to get these things working. Also at the Academy, Link South, Mac Wright, like to thank them for their work. Tim Watkins in their headquarters in Nemsha. Also Brian Thompson has been very helpful also. As I mentioned about the rosters, please try to get those things in. The other announcement is yesterday we had some questions about the mine rescue for metal non-metal. We're going to be rescheduling metal non-metal mine rescue training for Monday, the 21st at 1 p.m. Eastern. We'll be sending out notifications and invitations to everybody that are interested in listening in on the metal non-metal. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to the co-chairs for the advisory committee, Kenny Murray and Sammy Linville.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Just like I said yesterday, I'll say it again in case some of you all weren't on the call yesterday. Thanks once again for your continued dedication to our nation's mine rescue program. You know, sometimes it's one of those insurance policies that you have in a drawer that you hope you never have to use, but if you ever have to pull it out, you want to have your the best opportunity to have a successful outcome. And this training is part of that. We're fortunate to have on the line with us today the subject matter experts from the First Aid Rules Subcommittee that put this together for us. And I'll introduce the ones from coal, and then Sammy can do the same for metal. With me here in Lexington is Fred Shannon. He's the chairman from the coal side. Then we have Johnny Stemple, Travis Lett, and Donnie Coleman, along with Robert Cagle. In addition, we have the key official from the MSHA side is Verna Sturgill from over in Norton, Virginia. These guys have dedicated an enormous amount of time and effort to draft these rules to provide our best opportunity for our team members. You'll see as we go through this, there were a set of questions and answers that supported last year's rules. We moved those forward, and they now will be part of the 2022 rules. And all these rules are posted on MSHA and the Holmes websites. But I said the Q&As that were drafted last year are moved forward, and they do support this year's 2022 final rules document for first aid. there shouldn't be any local interpretations. We mentioned that yesterday. That only causes heartache at the national contest. If you're told at a local contest that it's okay to do this and you'll evaluate it in a certain manner, and then you come to the national contest and it's different, and then there's a lot of hard feelings. So if there's a need for any local interpretations, or any interpretations, I should say, take the word local out of that. If there's any clarifications that need made throughout the year, route those questions or scenarios to the national committee that's going to present the rules today. And they'll make an interpretation or a judgment and share that with the entire nation. That way we're all looking at the same playbook. The rules that are presented today are intended to be used for the national contest this year and all local contests. Like I said, there shouldn't be a version that's used at a particular contest. We ought to be playing out of the same book in preparation for the national. So with that, I'll turn it over to Sammy. Thanks again, guys and ladies.
Sammy, are you on here today?
Well,
Until we hear from Sammy, Kenny, why don't you take it over?
yeah, those that know Sammy, Sammy's a man of few words. That was humor. But anyhow, I'll introduce Sammy's guys as well. The chairman on the representing the metal side is David Taunt. Then he has Vincent LaCoya, Paul Bote, Mike Aikman, and on the MSHA side, he has Ben Gibson from the he'll serve as the key official on the first aid committee. And I'm sorry if I butchered those names, but that's those guys worked in conjunction with the Cole guys. At times there were compromise, obviously. These are still considered the unified rules, but we took the standard in first aid. A broken leg to a coal miner versus a metal, non-metal miner is the same broken leg, and it's treated in the same manner. So it's going to be an interesting event where we have both groups under one roof in Lexington at the end of the summer. But unless Sammy joined, that's all I had. Thank you.
I guess Fred can take it over from here.
Hopefully everybody can hear me all right. My name is Fred Shine. I am the co-chair of the first aid rules, along with David Tant from the metal, non-metal side. And obviously these rules haven't changed from last year, but we really didn't have any competitions, where anybody's familiar with them. And with the exception of the Dandridge contest last year, which we had a handful of teams in. But in our discussions between David Tant and myself, I thought how we would address this is I'll kind of focus on the things that's different for the coal side, and then David will focus on the differences for the metal, non-metal side, so we can kind of all get adjusted to this together. But a few things we do need to cover as we go through, because we do realize this is from the judging aspect, this is training for the judges, and it's really important for the teams and the judges to all understand what the rules are and what the intent is. So we'll try to cover some of them with that regard as well. And I see that Vernon Sturgill is on here, so feel free, Vernon, to chime in. He is our chief judge of this, so he would be the go-to as far as questions or concerns from problem designers and such. And I guess we should start right on page 1 with just the first statement on there, just to make sure that we cover it. This is, first aid rules are for training purposes only. It's just a training tool to train the teams. You know, the descriptions should certainly be used in an actual event. When you get down, this is mainly for judges, but the big problem at some of the time that we had anyway from the co side is the timing of envelopes and when it was handed out and things of that nature. The under number 2, you know, it talks about where the problem will be kept in unsealed envelopes and retained by the judges. They're to be given to the teams when they start the timing device, not before, or, you know, not several minutes after or anything. Just, you know, as soon as they start the timing device and you give them the problem, kind of like a mine rescue problem, you know, they start the clock and then they're well, it's not like that now. So bad comparison on that. We have the problem ahead of time as far as the written statement. We do get the problem after we start the timing device. So, and during the working of the problem, you may have an envelope that says this has happened, or, you know, somebody's in cardiac arrest. The timing of those envelopes is critical, that they're given out at the right time. Under 2A, it talks about using the props. And sometimes that's important with the layout of problems. And for the code guys that's unfamiliar with this, the moulage that is used is, you know, is excellent training, and that it is more realistic certainly than notes and such. But there's no, there won't be a sign on there that says, you know, a broken femur. It'd just be a moulage that looks like a broken femur. So we have to adjust to that from our side because we are familiar with that, but it is excellent training. And it just talks about here under 2A, it's just talking about if you use props, then you have to show the teams what the props are, and they have to be within the application of the skill sheets used for the treatment of the injuries. Now, number 3 is yes, sir.
Just to jump in there, the moulage that will be used will not be considered a prop. So
That's right.
I know in the past, if anything was different other than what was actually on the, you know, patient describing the injury, we had to tell the team prior to. So just a little clarification there.
That's correct, sir. Thank you. Okay, looking at number 3, I think will this be our first point of conversation about this. It talks on number 3 about the first aid supplies. And if you look on under B of that, 3B, it says the problem should be designed utilizing no more than the minimum material listed below. And on page 2, you see the material list. What you don't see on the material list is a recording mannequin. You know, it's okay if we had that in there, but if you know, it is required in the rules on page 5, rule 12B. But, you know, this was addressed sometime last year too, when we was going through this. If you look on the first page of the Q&A, it states in there that the recording mannequins are required. Now, there have been some discussions that I've had, I know David Tan has had as well, with, I guess, some unavailability of recording, you know, getting these devices. And we kind of addressed that last year too in the Q&A with the being able to share the mannequins. You know, typically in our rules, everybody had to have their own stuff and you weren't allowed to pass it back and forth between the teams. But, you know, understanding that is, you know, is difficult, and sometimes certainly through Laerdal to get these recording mannequins, that we made that option in the rules, actually addressed in the Q&A, that you are allowed to share the mannequins. So perhaps if a company, you know, has 3 teams and they have 1 mannequin, then that's something that we can work on through the contest directors and such so that they could pass those mannequins back and forth. Probably have any questions on that. That's good. No questions is good. I'm on over now to page 3. And this just talks about the moulage to make it as realistic as possible. And if if it's not feasible at the contest and the contest director has the discretion that they can use, you know, those tape and stickers and such if possible. You know, what they've done at the Dandridge contest, they actually had patients that were the same patients for every team. They had them moulaged up, and it was very realistic as far as how the treatment had to be on them. It was really, really exceptional training as far as the injuries and stuff was concerned. But that does give some option here for, you know, you can use the stickers if, you know, the moulage is not available. But, you know, it is important for teams to, and the contest officials and judges to understand that the teams do not provide the patients. Patients are provided by the contest director, or, you know, whomever. But I think the rest of this stuff is pretty common. I don't really see a need to address every single rule, but, you know, it does for the teams training purposes and for judges both, you know, the signs, symptoms, and mechanism injury can be used. So, and if it is signs and symptoms, it shall be identified by cards, envelopes, or labels placed on the patient. So you don't have to say, you know, it's whatever an injury is, you can just give the signs and symptoms, but it has to be labeled.
Hey, Kenny, I hate to interrupt for a second, but what page was the recorded mannequin located on?
It is on page 5 under Rule 12B.
Thank you.
And also, if you look in the Q&As on the very first page, it's under Q4. And then Q3 states the about the sharing of mannequins being allowed. That's under the Q&As. Okay, I'm going to roll on over now to where it says guidelines and procedures on page 4. And this is just basic stuff. You know, the first aid team has to be comprised of the 8-person registered mine rescue team. And you can have multiple teams if, you know, if a group has, you know, 2 different first aid teams, then they can, you know, they can certainly compete. But only one of them can be assigned with the mine rescue team as far as the combination is concerned, and that has to be done at registration. So if team A is the one that is going to be considered with the mine rescue team for the combination, then it has to be labeled when the team registers. Then team B will be competing for first aid, but will not be factored into that team's combination. I don't think there's anything else in there we need to discuss. Just making sure here. And Katie just brought up a point there from the mine rescue side, that is different, and that it's always been pretty consistent with the mine rescue side or coast side, that mine rescue team and the first aid team were as one. We're not really accustomed to having multiple teams. So the coal group this is somewhat different, that you have to make sure that you have that registered. You know, the team is first aid team with the mine rescue team at registration. And as far as the judges are concerned, I'm talking about under page 4, down near the bottom. Number 9 says be a minimum of 2 judges at the first aid stations, and there'll be assigned specific tasks to score. And what's important about this for the judges and for contest designers and problem designers and such, the big difference from the metal non-metal side for them will be the addition and the utilization of the skill sheets. Well, there's no way for judges to judge by the skill sheets if they don't have the skill sheets. So if you design problems and go over it with your judges, then you should have it laid out to where they can follow through the problem as it should be worked, and with the associated skill sheet, for whatever injury is, on that particular patient. That way, there's not a lot of jumbling back and forth, trying to find out, what the team should be doing or not doing. So from a judging aspect, if the packet is laid out well, then the judges can follow right through without, much hesitation. And those of you all that judge first aid know, first aid teams move pretty quickly when they're doing treatment and such. And if you have to look something up for 30 seconds, you probably miss several things. And that's bad from the team's perspective. If the judges didn't see you do it, then, in their mind, you didn't do it. So they could get unfairly discounted, if things aren't laid out right. So, look at the problems that you're creating, and when you go over it with the judges, make sure that they understand, when you get to this point during assessment, if they come to this injury, then here's the skill sheet for this one. And, and so on through the whole treatment of that patient. Going over to page 5 now, and that's what we're talking about under Rule 12 there, that there will be under the first aid station that the CPR with the AED may be incorporated into the problem. And that's a problem designer thing. It's not mandated that they do it with every problem, but they can. And then that's where the notation is that the team must provide their own recording mannequin.
Hey, Fred.
Yes, sir.
I know we got several questions on the materials list, asking about whether it would be checked or not prior to the contest. And of course, our answer was no, the materials list will not be checked for compliance from materials list. But if a problem is designed within the scope of the list, the team does not have it, you will be docked for not completing that procedure, which would be the same thing for a mannequin. If, several questions about a mannequin. If a team doesn't have a mannequin, can they still compete in the first aid contest? Of course they can. But if the problem designer has incorporated, CPR into the actual problem, then that would be an issue that they would be docked for everything that they couldn't do without a mannequin.
Thank you, Vernon. Yeah, it's important certainly for the teams to know that the materials list, as it's stated, is a recommended list. But for problem designers, they can use anything, on that list. So like he said, if you don't have it, then it could be a problem for the treatment of an injury if you don't have the required or the recommended the list. All right, under 15 on page 5, it just talks about the skill sheets and that the problem should be designed or will be designed from the skill sheets approved by the Rules Committee, and teams will be required to triage the accident scene. And with moulage, it's different. One guy's screaming their head off, and you think he might be the load and go guy, but perhaps it's the other guy. So it is important for us as teams to understand the importance of triage if you have multiple patients. And by rule, under 15, you can have up to 3 patients. Under 16 is just a layout issue. This is typically for us on the cold side, it was always 15 by 15 with a 3 foot by 15 foot area for our equipment. You couldn't leave that box. Well, it does note in the rules that is minimum. So if it's 30 by 30, that fits the requirements. So it can be bigger. It can be small. And is it also important for us to know, and I'm not sure how the metal non-metal side, Dave, I guess I can let you take over from there and kind of put your emphasis on the metal non-metal side with that difference is as far as the 3 foot by 12 foot, not being able to leave the box. If one problem that we had in our past before, from the cold side anyway, is if, in tossing things around or getting stuff out of your bags, something leaves that area, you can't go get it. It says in the rules that you can't leave the work area. It's under Rule 27 on the next page, but we can cover that in a minute. So if you toss something out of the work area, and you're gonna need it, then that's gonna be a problem, because you know, by rule, can't go get it. But go get it, I mean, you could go get it, you'll just be discounted for breaking that rule. Are y'all there, David? Thought I saw you on there.
Yeah, can you hear me, Kenny?
Yeah, we got you. That one.
All right. Yeah, we never had a designated box, but there was kind of an area we were allowed to work in. You couldn't leave it to get anything. We just didn't have a dimensions set up for that. A lot of it depended on the problem.
Yeah, that's mostly been for contest, officials and problem designers to keep it within a scope of for an area, in order to be able to determine the number of fields that we can use, which is the minimum. So, I mean, we can make it as big as we want. We just need to, at least that 15 by 15.
All right, thanks, guys. The one thing for us that's, well, I guess for both sides, is really good from a team aspect is under Rule 17. It states on there that no docs will be added for any physical treatment not performed, i.e. bandage, splint not correctly placed or utilized, that was not pointed out to the team before the team leaves the working field. And so for us as teams, if they clear the patient and he's ready to go, then if they didn't show it to you, when you get into appeals, you cannot be discounted for it by a rule. So for judges, it's very important. If you have an issue with a bandage or a splint or any physical treatment like that, you have to point that out to the teams prior to them leaving the field.
Yeah, that's a biggie for that one, because I mean that can decide a national champion right there if you don't point it out. And I like that rule. I know metal non-metal had that before. We actually had that in coal a few years back, but we removed it, and I think it was due to a national contest. But yeah, that's a good rule. But the judges need to know that they have to point those out before the team actually leaves the field.
And it's really good on all aspects, at least for the team. You know, I know going in, if I got discounted for, a certain bandage, if I have a rule that says I can manage it that way or out of the Brady text, then I go into protest. At least I know what I have to protest. But if I'm not shown anything before I leave the field, then I can't go in there and have discounts for any bandaging. So it is good. It takes some time from the judges, obviously, to show that to the teams, but it's well spent for both sides.
Hey, Fred, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
And I had a problem with the actual hearing a minute ago, but I'm got that corrected now. But yeah, that is a good rule. It does save time though in appeals, like you said. And I'll go back up to the designated area. We didn't really have a set area. We had a set area, but it wasn't written as far as what the dimensions had to be. You couldn't leave the area or anything like that. It was kind of designed to fit the problem. Really quite much of a change there on metal, non-metal. The big change on metal, non-metal is it's stopping and starting of the device, where we'll be starting kind of like we do on the field. We used to do that.
Okay, we'll skip on over now. We're on page 6. There's one thing I wanted to mention because it's important for the written, but it's also important for the, for problem designers and such. The emphasis of these rules is taken under Rule 23 there from the 11th edition of the Brady book. And then it also specifies the chapters that's involved down below that, along with the most current edition, American Heart Association Student Handbook. So problem designers have to come from that material. That's the reference for that. That is also the reference for the written examination is those same manuals. And under Rule 24, that just speaks about the teams not being permitted to use first aid manuals to reference during the working of the problem, and that there's no practicing allowed, with the exception of the mannequin. The familiarization of the AED and the mannequin. And what we always done from the co side is we had to run a test tape, give it to the judges, initially, and what that basically shows is, the mannequin did work and it recorded, correctly if your hand location is wrong or something of that nature, it shows that on the tape that was incorrect. Kind of shows him if the mannequin's working right too. But that's the only practicing allowed with the mannequin. And then just under 26, it's just a common sense kind of statement there, that if a traction splint were to be used, to not actually apply traction to that. These will be live patients, that's with the moulage and stuff on them. So we actually don't want to be, putting traction on splints and such on live persons. It's not needed. In real events, you may have to, but in a contest, don't do that. And of course, 27. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
On Rule 25 there about talking about oxygen, we actually had that question come about as far as, mentioned and said the rule refers using an oxygen mask on a patient, but no tank is needed. An oxygen mask is not on the equipment list. And then we actually said in the answer that the administration of oxygen is not addressed in the 2021 and it's not in the 2022 first aid rules, and the skill sheet has not been provided to outline procedures, critical skills for this task. There will be no expectations while the 2021 and the same for 2022 first aid rules are in place for the first aid team to administer oxygen to a patient. The problem designers will be advised of this interpretation of Rule 25 on page 6.
Thank you, Ernest. I skipped right over that. I meant to address that. We're on top of it, but it is on under Q11 under Q&As. And quickly over the Rule 28 on the bottom there about the rough treatment of the patient. It's not necessarily an exclusive list, just some examples of what mishandling the patient what would get you this discount. And talk about mishandling extremities, stepping across the patient, etc. And then it defines also down below that straddling is only acceptable for patient loading during two-person extremity lift or a fireman's drag. And also specifies, because this was at a co-nationals once, that doesn't include the rolling up patient to the side that is injured or rolling the patient more than one time. If you roll a patient right, then you roll a patient right. Don't matter if you roll him once or twice, as long as you're doing it correctly. So that will not be rough treatment of the patient. We'll skip on over now to, if there's anything on this next page that sticks out at me. Well, under page 7, when I get down on the written examination, that's what I just stated earlier about the written exam. It says it will be 15 questions taken from the review manuals that we just discussed for those specific chapters. It will be taken from the review questions and the glossaries of the Brady text, and then the most current edition of the American Heart Association Student Handbook as of January 1 of the contest year. And under 3, this talks about, the statement configure or the question configuration, and this is identical to mine rescue, that it will be blank space with a keyword, no more than 2 consecutive blanks per statement. Answer will be multiple choice with 3 choices, and there will not be intentionally misspelled. And of course, none of the above shall not be used as one of the choices. No difference here on the first aid part is is it 20 minutes on mine rescue as well? 15, isn't it? At any rate, ours is 20 minutes. On the first aid, you got 20 minutes to take the test. The rest of it is pretty basic in that you can't have the written material in there or nothing. So Now, our intention with this was that all three would take the test, and we would keep the highest two, but I don't think we got that took out, did we, Burns? So all three people taking the test.
All three people still take it and they're all three graded.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but that was our intention, but, you know, we didn't get there, so, you know, you can't have the one lackluster test taker, you know, all of them's gotta be solid, because all three count, so. And before with us, you know, as both people took it anyway, but now it's just three people taking it, so. Okay, this is a big one for us on the coal side. I think metal, non-metal was pretty used to this on page 8 under the appeals. It says upon completion examination of the patient by the judges, the team will be informed of any infractions regarding treatment while at the station. The team will be permitted to verbally appeal any infractions either with the field judge or the chief judge. If not resolved, the chief judge will make the final decision until appeal can be filed by the team. Now, from the coal side, that's a big change. You know, actually kind of doing appeals on the field with any treatment issue. So if they don't show you anything, obviously they can't dock you for it, but then if they show you something that they think was incorrectly bandaged, and you think it was correctly bandaged, then you can appeal that by whatever means you have there. And if necessary, then they can contact the chief judge if it's available. Now, that could be the problem. And Vernus being the chief judge, the availability of the chief judge to ever feel like that might be, you know, something that's unavailable, but maybe you can appoint somebody to do that. What are your thoughts on that, Vernus?
Actually, was just thinking that, Fred, that will probably be something we'll have to look at. Maybe one of the supervising judges or the chief. But now we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, and on the metal, non-metal side, we typically call that like a 5-minute look. And once they tell you what you got, while the patient's still laying there, you could appeal it. But we never relied on the chief judge coming over, because if you can't settle it, the two judges there, it just goes on to your 30, you know, once you do your other. It does avoid a lot of little things like you said, not bandaging correctly versus, you know, what fact because you can point it out and show.
Yeah, I think it's you know, a good thing. It's time consuming and, you know, somewhat cumbersome for the judges, but at the end of the day, in the contest, you know, it's gonna be better in that you'll have a lot of issues resolved on the field before they ever get to protest.
Yeah, and it's not meant to argue. It's just meant, you know, just like a real quick, this is what we've seen, and you're like, well, this is we did or whatever, and then just be just a real quick conversation, not an argument.
Another number 2 of that same rule on page 8, it said during the verbal appeal process, any questionable splints or dressings must remain intact until it's resolved. And if they're removed or altered by the team, then the appeal will not be allowed. So from the team aspect, if you got issues with it, you know, don't take it off until you get your appeal resolved, or at least settled to the point that you can take it off. Because if you take it off and it's not resolved, then you're going to be docked for it, and then no protest will be granted. The other 2 there are just talking about the 30-minute looks, which is just a review. You know, they call them looks, so we went with that terminology. From the coal side, we're not used to that verbiage, but it's the same thing. It'll be posted, and then you'll have 30 minutes to review your scorecards.
Hang on, let me get where see what I'm doing.
Excuse me? I thought somebody said something. So, but that's the same as far as appeals goes. Now for us, coal side, that's a little bit longer too, but before we only had 20 minutes. You have 30 minutes now. And anybody that's wrote appeals, not that I've wrote appeals, I'm not saying I have, but But 20 minutes is, that is tight, you know, it's hard to write a whole lot in 20 minutes. So 30 minutes gives you a little bit more time to gather your thoughts and write it maybe a little more clear. So it's a good change from our perspective anyway. Give me a few more minutes to write stuff down. Like I say, not saying I do that, but in case I were to do it, I'd be able to. So we're skipping on over to page 9. Dave, if you want to cover this is a little more, you know, a little different from y'all's side. And talking about under the discounts, where it's talking about the critical skills and such.
Yeah, that's fine. You want me to do it now or just, once you're finished, me run through the things that I had highlighted along the way?
That's how you want to handle it, sir.
Well, we're here now, so might as well. Yeah, the big difference on this one with the discounts is the critical skill sheets. The critical skill sheets is, you know, like we said earlier, is what they're writing the problem off of. You know, the injuries, if it's not in one of the skill sheets, they shouldn't be an injury.
What did I do for?
Do what? Okay. But to get back to that, on the skill sheets for metal, non-metal side, we didn't have them. But it is a good thing because you've got what the judges are writing the problem on and what you're being graded on. Biggest things on the skill sheets for like the metal, non-metal side is where there's an asterisk, it has to be verbalized by the team. So when you're training, make sure you're hitting all those verbalizations as well as the context. And then the other one is the VP doc. That's something we didn't verbalize. VP doc, we did walk through it when we're checking injuries, but we didn't specifically state VP doc. And with the VP doc, you've got to verbalize the first time when you hit the head is what that stands for. Then after that, you just repeat VP doc at each area that's required by the skill sheets. That's the biggest thing on the skill sheet for the metal, non-metal side. I do like them because the judges has the same step process that you have. They're not going by into the book to determine what needs to be done, and these are written by the book. And that's pretty much it on that side of it, Fred, for us.
All right, thank you, Brother Rich. And for the coast side, of course, that's no change. It's been the same for us as far as the asterisks and the skill sheets are concerned. And that's why it's important from a problem designer and the judging aspect, you know, to have the skill sheets laid out and where they understand what the verbalizations are for each specific injury or treatment that they have to do. That way, there's not questions, you know, later on, you know, did they say that? Did they not say that?
Is it muted?
No, we're not muted. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Fred.
Okay. That's what we was talking about earlier too, you know, like I say, it's important for the judges to understand where they're supposed to verbalize at, so, you know, if they didn't say it, then both judges will know they don't say it. If they're keeping it with their own, they're down their own skill sheet, you know, when they get done with the problem, then they compare, no, I didn't hear him say this, another judge said the same thing, then, you know, he got the same thing noted, then, you know, it's gonna be a discount on the verbalization. And the reason that's important is just the things that were asterisk like that is the things from a training aspect. You know, if you're saying it, you know, it's going to help you know it. So, and so I'll cover a couple of these just quickly, just for the judge and the teams. The under 5, it talks about, you know, a team makes one mistake, it may violate 2 different rules, but you can't be docked under both rules. The judge, what it says in the rule here is they will pick the one with the highest discount value to it, but they can't dock you for both. You know, the double dipping, and there's several things you can do in first aid that would, you know, violate maybe two different rules. But if it's one act, then it's, you know, it's one discount, not both rules. And under number seven there, just a notation that, you know, you may do more than the scope of work required under the Brady text on these skill sheets. Well, that's okay. You can do more. You can't do less. So this says here that they won't be discounted for doing more unless it's detrimental to the patient. And then number 8, you know, for the judge's aspect of it, that if it's not listed, if a discount's not listed on the discount sheet, and it's not covered under one of the approved rules, then it's not a discount. They may have done something that looked wrong or seemed wrong, but if there's not a discount for it, then you can't, you know, throw it somewhere else just to get a discount to it. The rest of these other rules are just talking about the reassessing the patient and such. That's just, you know, that's common stuff. And number 10, it just talks about if the moulage is not used, then you have to make the statement about removing clothing, exposing and cleaning the wound surfaces. It's only required to be made once during working of the problem. This will cover a little, this, you know, 14 that's unfamiliar with it, maybe, and for the judges, but, you know, rapid assessment consists of initial assessment and patient assessment. You know, if you're doing a rapid assessment and all the life-threatening injuries are treated, and patient is delayed, then you have to come back and do a detailed patient assessment and treat the injuries. As you all know, the rules of it during the rapid assessment, any of the life-threatening injuries you must treat, but anything else, you know, if they're load and go, then, you know, they're load and go. But if the problem that patient transportation is delayed, then you must go back and treat the injuries as you come to them. But it does tell you there that it will consist only of the procedures with treating all injuries when found. Now, this next box here, if anybody's unfamiliar with it, is straight out of the Brady text about triage. And it defines each patient, what they would be, whether it's immediate, delayed, minor, or deceased. So if they are immediate, then the rapid assessment and only the life threats will be treated. If they're delayed or minor, then it's a patient assessment with treatment, you know, as you come across the injuries. Then down at the bottom of page 10 and on page 11, it defines all those scenarios, whether it's immediate, delayed, minor, or deceased.
Fred.
Yes, sir.
Just a little, one of the questions we actually had to do with this as far as how the team will know. And it's question 24 says, how will a team determine if a patient is immediate, delayed, minor, or deceased by the start triage system table provided in the rules? Will a team be given a card or envelope with the information for each patient that is in the problem, or will they ask the judge what are respirations, perfusion, and mental status? The answer we give on that, and it's what we've used in code for a while, the patient will have the results of respirations, perfusion, and mental status in the size of at least 8.5 by 11 sheet visible to the team upon approach to the victim, to each victim.
That's right, Ernest, that is correct, under G24. And I you know, stick over that as well, because that's pretty common for us, but that is a change for the metal, non-metal group. I would think, I don't think they do that, do you, Dave? Or that had in the past anyway.
We didn't have those in the past. If they gave you a card, you know, if it was something that reported, they would give you or tell you what their respiration were.
So for problem designers and, you know, for the judges and certainly for the team, so they would know the under Q24, when we address this, under the questions and answers, that's what's stated, is that it will be those respirations, perfusion, and the mental status will be on piece of paper or something that size 8.5 by 11 on the patient as you approach them. So if you have 3 patients, you have to have 3 lists. So that people know as they come to them what their status is. Because in triage, that's what they have to know, determine their treatment. Now, it is important to note for teams that, status can change during the working of the problem. If they give you a note that says, patient number 2, has now become unconscious when he was just a minor patient before. He now, he changes. He becomes immediate. So that, that is allowed in the working of a problem. Under the scorecard A discounts for the teams, and of course, thinking about judging the teams as well. We talked about during the rapid assessment, you have to treat life threats. Under Rule 1, it defines what the life threats are. So these life-threatening conditions are the ones that have to be treated during the rapid assessment. It is also important to note for teams that you can have life threats and still not be an immediate patient. By rule, I ain't saying in real life, but by rule, it could be life-threatening, but still not be immediate. And we won't read through every single one of those, but
I'm not sure what happened to my document. I may have to stop sharing it and reload it.
You might want to try hitting Control Z on your keyboard and see if maybe something that you did needs to be undone. Hmm.
I think it may be my internet.
Hey, Stephanie, I have, if you're able to, pass that over to us, I have the document, minimized. I can put it up if we can.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Sorry about that.
You guys hear me? Oh. All right, so can
they were at it.
okay, you should be able to share now.
Well. Under number 2. I'll go up there a little bit too.
Now, if your screen is the same as mine, mine is at the bottom of the screen. There's a button that says share.
If not, I've got mine brought up.
Okay.
There, we got something.
All righty.
Can y'all see it?
Yeah, we can see it.
Under, it's on, I'm going up there. Right there. I just wanted to go over quickly on number 2 there. It states there, if the team comes across life-threatening bleeding, then no other work can be done until that bleeding is controlled and verified by the judge. But if the treatment's been started, one team member can do that treatment, the other team member can then continue to work. So it's just something on the judges, they'll have to understand that that's allowed if the treatment is started. And number 3, I wanted to mention this for well, teams and judges, of course, but during the work of the problem, you may encounter an envelope or a card or something stating other various conditions. For example, it may say, patient B is in cardiac arrest. This is what we were talking about earlier about the cards and the envelopes. They got to be given to the teams, at the correct time. It could change the whole problem if they work it, the cards are either late or early or whatever. Now, if the team gets the card and they don't act on it, then that's the team's fault. We have to act on it once we see it. But that's what we were referring to earlier about envelopes or cards or something that's handed to the team. And it's totally allowed by the rule to do that. But just make sure we do it at the right time. And I don't see anything else on that particular page that's other than we made a similar note on the rule 7 down there, just about similarly dressed or dressed uniformly. The shoes didn't have to be identical, and the pants/shorts should be the same color. It's similar to what we did in Mine Rescue. Ernest, do you see any need to address these rules particularly down through here, or anything we need to address on 13 or 14?
No, I don't, Fred.
It's just, it's basic stuff, and like I say, it's unchanged.
It is.
I just want to mention, it does mention about the gloves there for teams that's trying to get going on this. You're new to it. You have to wear gloves, and the gloves is contaminated from one patient to another. You got to change gloves, or if you get a tear in your glove, you have to change your glove before you touch the patient. All right, we're going over now to just quickly too on page 1523. The failure to determine immediate patients. That's why it's so important that this be clear on the patients, because if a team doesn't determine a patient is immediate, then there's a discount for that. So if they read over the respiration, perfusion, and mental status and don't make the right determination, then this is what this rule is for here. And all these discounts on the page 16 is talking about the interpretations of the B card for artificial ventilation and carpal resuscitation. And just for the teams that's unfamiliar with the mannequins and such, this is where these discounts will come in, is under this. Actually, it's on the next page, but it's talking about where about the depth of the compressions, the number required, the release of the stroke, and the rate and such. That's per cycle. So if you do a set, it's 5 cycles. So it is judged per cycle. And that's really the only way you can judge CPR on these particular issues here is with a recording mannequin. That's why we let this in here and put the mannequin in, or let the mannequin in. Anything on that, David, we need to cover as far as the AV or the CPR?
No.
Discounts.
No, I don't have anything to cover on it, Fred.
Then that gets you to the skill sheets, you know, the rest of it, obviously, we don't need to go over each individual skill sheet. But it is important that you look over the skill sheets. Certainly the ones in the front are gonna be the most common ones, initial patient assessment. Patient assessment is in the CPR right behind that. So, but pay attention to the right side for those teams that, if they are new or, you know, be starting on this. That's the critical skills. So it's under, you know, each side you have on the left side, you have the procedures, on the right side, you have critical skills. And once again, we'll state that, you know, all this is taken either from the Brady text or the handbook for the CPR. And then just for everyone to understand too, on some of the skill sheets, there's some writing on the bottom of the pages. That's, you know, this is part of, much as part of the skill sheet as the stuff on the procedures and the critical skills. Under some of them, it addresses that stuff just in writing and not in the little blocks laid out in the skill sheets. Look under, you know, one that comes to my mind is like the collarbone. You know, collarbone's written specifically. That's on page 38. Is when y'all get a chance to look through it. And this makes a mention about the collarbone and the shoulder blade, and then there's things about the fingers. So, you know, make sure you look through all the skill sheets and the notations on the bottom. There's one right there. Can you pass that a little bit right there? On the 2018. 34. Yeah, on 34, you know, that's actually all written out, but it's just as much a skill sheet as page 33 is. So make sure you cover all those things, and it tells you specifically what you have to do. You know, I don't know, was there a need to go through any of the Q&As, Vernus? I don't really see the need to, but if you see anything we need to address, and we will.
Well, I just brought up a few that were changes, Fred, as you was going over the rules there. I do have a few things I'd like to say as far as judges.
Yes, sir.
One in particular is, and when using these skill sheets, we need to mark on the skill sheets only what a team does not do. Because a lot of times when you're trying to follow, just like you said, the first aid teams move quick. A lot of times, you know, as you're trying to mark, they've already went through what you're trying to mark and look at and try and find. But on the skill sheets, I only mark what the team does not do. The skill sheets that are marked and they are to be used as far as later on when the teams appeal, then those need to be put into the packets. The skill sheets need to be put into the packets as they were marked. And two judges must concur when it comes to a doc on these skill sheets as far as what is docked on the skill sheets. Say a team didn't do an entire skill, then they have to concur. Two judges need to concur, and those do need to be put back in the packets for appeal purposes and for final appeal people to be able to look at and see that the judges concurred, and we'll be able to get in contact with the judges that actually marked them. But yeah, that's really, like I say, that's for judges only kind of situation, but you'll be able to see that as well as far as teams. You'll like it. It'll be easier for you to be able to review the skill sheets and see what you didn't do and what you'll need to appeal for. So I'd like for everyone to get used to doing that. I think that's the best case scenario.
I have a question. We have a question here at No Run, if you guys got a second.
Sure.
We was wondering about having a doc for not finishing the problem. Like even if you got the patients completely taken care of, but you didn't get on a stretcher and get out of the mine, if there's a time limit set up for that.
Yes, there is a discount for that. It talks about a time limit. So you can work on it.
If we're given a time limit to finish the problem and we don't stop the time by getting the patients out to a designated area, there used to be like a 25-point doc for not accomplishing that. And we looked through the rule book and we're seeing that there's no doc for that anymore. And we was actually in a competition to where the team didn't get the people out. They just got, the time ran out and they stopped them, but they had everything treated, but they didn't have to run over all the stuff there was to try to get them patients out, which teams got heavily docked for doing that. So we was wondering about that.
So you had a time limit and the team wasn't allowed to actually stop the clock. They met the time limit, but they had actually treated everything on all the patients.
What they done was they stopped, they did not get a doc for not completing, I think is what he's saying. They did not complete the problem. The problem was get people out of the area.
Yeah, the problem, you had to get the patient to the designated area, and they didn't. They just had the patients treated correctly, but there was no doc for not getting them out. And they had stuff scattered all over the floor, and there was teams that got several docs just trying to get the patients out, and they won the competition and they didn't move any patients, didn't load no patients, but the time got stopped on them. But they didn't dedock for not finishing the problem, which was getting the patient all the way out of the designated area.
And they
Should have-
did that
they
through. Go ahead.
should have been docked for not following the written instructions.
Agreed.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you should never leave that 15 by 15 or whatever area during one of these problems, correct?
That would be a problem design issue. You're right. If you design a problem that you're asking the team to actually leave the area, you're actually having them break a rule that we've got in place saying you stay within that. Well, the area, whatever you designate it for the first aid problem, which is a minimum of 15 by 15. You're exactly right.
We didn't necessarily like take them out of the problem, but we had to load them onto a stretcher and push them over to where the time was to stop it, was how the problem was designed.
Well,
But there wasn't no.
Well, the thing is, even on metal, non-metal side, you were considered, once you got the patient ready for transport, you stopped. That was in the national rules. We did not transport people by the national rule.
You stop the clock.
You stopped the clock once everybody was treated and you was done with the problem. We did not move or transport people. We got them on the board and ready to go, covered with a blanket, and then you handed the judge the problem back and it was stopped. We did not transport. So that was definitely a problem design.
Yeah, that's what I say, David. It's more of a problem design than it is anything. But yeah, and I would also like to say for any of the problem designers that might be on the call, if they have a problem and they would like for Ben Gibson or myself to look at it, feel free to shoot us an email with that problem. It won't be shared with anyone. I mean, actually, we want to be able to review it and give you some suggestions as far as how to make it work and be able to, the contest be able to flow.
Hey, Vernus.
Yes.
Hey, I got a quick question for you. We design the problems down here. Okay, if I'm doing a rapid exam and I come to a fracture, do I got to stabilize that fracture before going on to life-threatening?
Oh, you already know that you have a fracture.
Yeah, or do I lay a card down for it?
Let me think on that. Who am I talking with?
It's Russ Byers
Okay.
down here at the ODNR.
Okay, all right.
If it's not immediate life threat, you go on and finish your primary. Then when you're doing your secondary, you fix the problems that you come upon.
Okay, because it kind of goes both ways in there because it tells you as soon as you see it, you have to stabilize it.
And he's saying, David, that he's presented with a card saying it's now an immediate patient.
If it's immediate, you only fix the immediate life threat, right? Unless they're going to be delayed, then you go back and have to do it then.
Okay.
Again, another problem design issue. If you ask me, you don't lead a team into that situation.
Okay, so that would be something you would throw the card in on the patient exam.
Fred?
Well, typically speaking, if you're doing, if you're treating the live threats on a load and go patient, then that's all you treat. The other
Yeah.
lacerations or something, you don't have to treat those on a load and go patient.
Well, it would be a delayed transportation.
Delayed call.
Yeah, unless it was the delayed transportation,
Yeah,
Fred.
these will be delayed.
Okay.
Then yes, you have to treat it.
Yes, until you're notified that you have transportation, you go back and do the treatments.
Okay, so as long as if they do see it, they can bypass it during the rapid.
If notified that it's an immediate patient, that's exactly right.
Okay, that clears a lot of stuff up. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Kenny. Kenny, are you there? Hey, Kenny, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, back to the rules on page 19 down at the bottom where it states what BPDOC is. It don't list crepitus in there.
Yeah, that was supposed to be.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That was supposed to be. taken care of.
It is listed in the skills.
Okay, thank you.
It's just not listed in the rule like it should.
Yes, sir. Actually, on mine it is showing it to be there, but
You may have a newer edition. Mine doesn't show it either. The one that Sammy sent out to the metal non-metal guys, I don't see it on there. It's in for the open one.
okay, the final one that I have, David does have it in there.
Good. Well, that's the one that's going to count when we get it sent out.
Yes, sir.
So Fred, you covered all the stuff I highlighted. I just want to go back and emphasize to like the metal non-metal guys that we didn't have a specified list, and this list is recommended. It's not mandatory, but if you don't have what's needed to complete the problem, then there's an issue. So make sure you do have that minimum stuff because that's what they're setting the problem.
Hey, Stephanie, can you go to the bottom of page 19?
Is that good?
Yes.
I don't have it either there, but
Is that did you pull those rules from the site then?
I think so. I think it's where it came from.
Okay. Like I say, on my copy, it's showing it to be on there, but it's no biggie.
No.
It is on the skill sheet, so we're okay on that.
I think these are the rules you'll find posted on the MSHA website.
Okay. Fred, I don't guess we have anything else, do we?
Well, nothing that I had marked to go over, but I'm open to anything y'all want to look at. But we're a little past our allotted time. I don't think nobody's waiting on us. So, but if anybody has questions or things we need to get some clarification on, now's a good time.
Just keep in mind, I said earlier that the Q&A document that we had up at the end, it also is posted on the website, and it does support those 2022 final rules. So it's the comprehensive inclusion of both documents gone through this year.
This is Rowdy with 20 Mile. Want clarification on guidelines and procedures. Number one, the first aid team will consist of 3 members of the 8-person registered mine rescue team. Will one of those three members be pre-designated as a bystander, or will all three of those members be allowed to be working team members?
All three, they will all three be team members. If there's a bystander, it has to be provided and they have to be marked and told that that person is bystander. If
Exactly.
my memory serves me correct. So you will now have three working team members work
We'll
across.
now have three working team members. If a bystander is needed, it will be provided by contest.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, you can always use one of you. You could, if you determine that you need one, you can always use one of the team members as that.
Understood.
Okay.
But we can use our three team members
Any way you want to.
whenever we see fit under the guidelines of the rules.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're going to have to cut this session off now. I want to thank Fred, David, and Vernus. Did an excellent job. If anybody else has any questions, please direct your questions to them. And please tune in for the Team Tech at 11:30. You're going to have to sign in again for Team Tech. But I think the session went really well. And please get your rosters into Stephanie so we can have a record of your participation. And thanks again, everybody, for participating today. Okay.
Hey, Jeff, one thing I'd like to add.
Oh, sorry.
Not that I didn't appreciate her, but I realized today that Stephanie has the toughest job in this process.
Yeah, definitely.
So once again, Stephanie, nicely done. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Steph.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened to my document. It just went crazy all of a sudden.
That's the internet for you.
We're a team.
I'm back and running now, looks like. So we're all
Yeah,
good.
you're doing good.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Okay, we'll see everybody.